Hello guys and welcome back to another CH weather video. Today we're going to be talking about the upcoming severe weather outbreaks that are possible across the Midwest and southern states, southern US. So let's get straight into it. Looking at the day 1 convective outlook from the Storm Prediction Center, you can see a slight risk issued over parts of Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma, with another slight risk in Texas. This includes a small conditional threat for tornadoes. A 5% risk has been introduced into central Oklahoma. This is for the start of the initiation when these storms really begin as supercells. The wind threat is a 50% risk. This encompasses the slight risk. And then the hail risk is 50% here, with a significant kind of in central Oklahoma, a little where they first start. This is again when they first start a supercell, so they have a higher chance to produce larger hail. And the slight risk down south is very much just because the intense hail risk. This is all a 15% significant risk of hail. Going to the day 2 outlook, this is a little bit more concerning. You can see an enhanced risk issued for Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, northeastern Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky. This includes a 10% hatched risk of tornadoes. Anywhere in this yellow area should be extra weather aware and have a way to get warnings. And if you're also in this 2% and 5% risk area, also need to be weather aware. Again, the hatched risk means there is a 10% or greater probability of EF2 to EF5 tornadoes. Look at the wind threat. You can see a very large 30% hatched risk. This means there is a 30% risk of winds greater than 59 miles an hour, but it also means there's a 10% or greater chance of winds greater than 70 miles an hour, which can be very damaging. Looking at the hail threat, one reason the enhanced risk was extended into parts of northeastern Texas is because of this intense hail risk. See a 30% hail risk along with that significant hail risk of hail within more than 2 inches in diameter. Going to the day 3 outlook, you can see as the system propagates to the east, there continues to be a slight severe weather risk from Louisiana all the way up into New York. The probabilistic shows just a 15% risk of severe weather, and then the brown follows with 5. The day 4 through 8 outlook, starting with the day 4 outlook in parts of Kansas, Missouri, and these states around the four corners right here. 50% risk of severe weather. Now, since this is a little far out, we are not sure what the actual threat for specific things will be, but as we get closer, we'll definitely be able to tell more. The day 5 risk is definitely more concerning. This looks possibly more like the possibility of way more tornadoes. I don't want to say a tornado outbreak this early on, just because it's far out. But 30% risk, this was issued yesterday too. A day 6, 30% risk is a very strong risk, so we definitely need to be watching out for this. And then all the rest, day 6, 7, and 8, there is no risk. Going into the simulated radar, you can see this is the NAM 3-kilometer convection, and the convection in Oklahoma that causes the storms. You see they start as a supercellular threat and then congeal into a line. One thing to notice about these storms on Sunday is in the morning there is a lot of convection going on in the Ohio Valley up into Michigan and Indiana. The caliber or strength of the convection, especially how long they occur for, will definitely determine the risk of severe weather later in the day. So if there's more rain, stronger storms, there's going to be less of a severe weather risk later in the afternoon and overnight. But if there's less rain and the storms are weaker, then there is a stronger chance of severe weather. Once those get cleared out of the area, you can see the initiation of storms down in Alabama. These look like they could be supercells, possibly. Then you can see the line of storms finally initiate over Illinois. These start out as a supercellular threat. You can see this is where the 10% risk area is. Separated storms, these will be supercells. As they continue to go east, you can see they congeal into a line. Going down the United States, again, the more south you go, the more likely chance for supercells and all the hail and tornadoes. And then they eventually become one large mesoscale convective line with the risk of damaging winds. And as that moves into the east coast, you can see it continues to be a line with mainly the risk for damaging winds, although you cannot rule out a tornado or two. the dew points are very high and go very far north for a storm. The storm's very strong. You can see dew points reaching 64 up in Michigan. This goes all the way up into Toronto, with dew points in the 70s down south. And these dew points are very, very high. Plenty of dew point for storms to initiate and sustain themselves. And you can see that continues to go on the east coast with very high dew points. Look at the simulated IR satellite again, looking at the convection across this area. The amount of convection really helps determine the strength of the storm. So you can see the initiation of the storms in Oklahoma. They really blow up there. And then they die down as they move east. You can see the initiation of storms in Mississippi and Alabama into Georgia. And then you watch your area, and if you see a pretty wide area of no clouds, you can see like right here, it's just going to be very sunny for a couple of hours. That'll destabilize the atmosphere in front as these storms go through. And you can see when they first start, you can see all these supercells kind of in Arkansas going up in the tornado risk area, especially for hail. Then they eventually, again, become a large line of storms with the risk of damaging winds. Looking at the Cape and the wind barbs, really anywhere that you see the Cape and the wind barbs together is an area of concern. Now, the Cape is very impressive for some parts of the south. You can see Cape values reaching upwards of 2,000 to possibly 3,000 joules per kilogram. Keep in mind, 1,500 joules per kilogram is plenty enough for storms. So 3,000 is double that. Looking at the temperature, you can see it's going to be very hot out in front of the storm, with temperatures approaching the 90s to 95s in Texas, 70s in Florida's, and also 70s and 80s across the East Coast. But as the storm goes through, it's going to get downright a little chilly across the Midwestern side of states. You might reach temperatures around 60 in the south, 40 in Ohio, 40 in Indiana, possibility of freezing temperatures coming back to Michigan. Looking at the significant tornado parameter, this one really shows you where the strongest possibility of tornadoes are. You can see as this moves to the east, significant tornado parameter really blows up across Kentucky, Tennessee, and to the areas just to the west, so Arkansas and Missouri. And this is exactly where the 10% hatched risk is. And let's take a look at the model sounding, simulated model sounding for fun. So looking at this one, possible hazard type, it says right now is a PDS tornado. You can see critical angle of 60 degrees. The closer that is to 90, the better that is. The SRH is a little low, but still plenty. And really one of the main factors of this is just the insanely high CAPE. This is 2,927 joules per kilogram, which is pretty much 3,000 joules per kilogram. Looking at the effective layer STP with CIN, you can see wherever this line falls is what tornado strengths we are expecting. This goes from EF4, EF3, EF2, EF1, so you can expect some pretty strong tornadoes. And this sounding was for, I believe, Tennessee, and this does go for Kentucky as well. Now, with northern extent, the tornado risk definitely goes down. You can see once you start to get into Ohio up here, the significant tornado parameter is definitely a lot lower. Maybe areas like Cincinnati, Warren County, the Clinton County, all these counties may have the possibility of tornadoes as well. You can see the tornado risk here. Not as much CAPE, only around 12,000. Whoa, that's a lot. 1,260 joules per kilogram. But it could still possibly bring tornadoes. Looking at the service-based CAPE, again, this is one thing that I have to point out, is the insane CAPE that comes along with these storms. See, as it surges to the north, you can see areas in Tennessee approaching 3,200 joules per kilogram. Kentucky, 2,500 joules per kilogram. Illinois, 2,600 joules per kilogram. And just some insanely high CAPE values. With northern extent, these also go down. But there's still plenty of CAPE, anywhere above 1,500 for the enhanced risk, which goes through Ohio and parts of very southern Michigan. As this moves east, CAPE gets all used up, and then it flares back up in the east coast for that line of storms. Looking at the bulk shear, this will help determine the possibility of tornadoes. As I go into Sunday, see there's plenty of shear, especially with these areas of storms that we're expecting here. So that increases the tornado potential because they have enough wind shear to start rotating in the first place. Looking at the supercell composite, this is not as important, but supercells are really the big daddy storms, and they are the strongest of them all. So looking at this will kind of help determine what kind of storms we can see. And this is, it gets pretty high over Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, parts of Kentucky, into southern Indiana. Anywhere in that yellow is pretty high. But that blue as well is also some high values. Blue is, let's see, 8 out of, I don't know, 46, but I don't really look at that number. It doesn't matter as much. So let's take some soundings. Tennessee right there. Tornado, pretty high right here. Critical angle of 73, which is concerning, just because that angle is closer to 90. Cape of 25.74, plenty of cape. Good SRH, that's pretty high. The hodograph is curved. And the effective layer SDP shows the tornado potential strength to be very high, which is concerning. Let's go up here in Ohio. It should still have a little bit of a tornado risk, critical angle of 43. The SRH and Cape are significantly lower, but other than that, there's still a risk of tornadoes. And this all comes with the supercellular threat. And then you can see as it flares back up in the East Coast, there is not as much as a supercellular threat. Again, this is mostly just a congealed line of storms. Just to make sure everybody really knows where they are, just to point out some cities in the enhanced risk tomorrow. You can see Cincinnati, Dayton, goes all the way up into South Bend, close to Toledo, areas like Sturgis, Michigan, Indianapolis, St. Louis, West Plains, Springfield's in the slight risk, but if you're anywhere east of Springfield, Little Rock, Arkansas, Lone Star, and Texarkana, Texas, Bastrop, Lake Providence, Shreveport, and Yazoo City. Just keep going around Memphis, Nashville, Louisville, and Lexington. So if you're anywhere near those cities, you definitely need to be on the lookout because that is an enhanced risk. Then anywhere in the slight risk, Columbus, Pittsburgh, Lansing, Detroit, Chicago, Fayetteville, Dallas, Chattanooga, Jackson, anywhere like that also needs to be on the lookout. If I go to the day 3 outlook, looking at the slight risk, you can see this goes from New Orleans through Birmingham, Atlanta, Columbia, Charlotte, Virginia Beach, Richmond, up into Philadelphia, Albany, and Syracuse. Need to be on the lookout there for some damaging winds. And the day 4 through 8, looking at this one, this is the 30% day 6, technically day 5 risk. Cities such as Evansville, Louisville, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Memphis, Little Rock, and Nashville. Areas under that enhanced 30% risk definitely need to be on the lookout because this does look pretty concerning for widespread severe weather. And then also anywhere in the 15% risk also needs to be on the lookout. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I will try and keep you guys updated tomorrow, especially. I'll issue another video, and thank you for watching. See you next time.